The capacity to look into each other's eyes and recognize the greatness and the misery of their common humanity has strategic consequences for the business.
Hola, buenos días, queridos oyentes del programa Los Días del Cambio. In this new episode, we will address the concept of working with fuzzy and meshed systems, whatever that is. But I'm determined also to touch my guest's idea of love being the ultimate model of change facilitation and the paths that the change agent needs to thread to become a master. As always, this episode and all others are available on different streaming platforms. You will find all the information plus show notes on our website, which is changedays.com/podcast. I'm Holger Nauheimer, and today I feel like a real freshman because Eugenio Moliní is one of the persons I met over the last years who had a very strong impact on me, and he influenced my thinking and practice considerably. At the Change Days, we call him our in-house philosopher because few people are diving so deep into the essence of our field. Eugenio had left his homeland Spain end of the 70s and moved to Sweden, where he was trained as a Gestalt psychotherapist. He worked as a supervisor of mental health professionals in a hospital where he became aware of how hospital organizations worsened the health of people instead of helping them to regain physical and mental sanity. The logical consequence for him was that he started to pursue a path as an organizational development practitioner. Since the 80s, he has helped many profit and non-profit organizations around the world, and he describes his heart-spurning desire to experience organizations in which a person can shine with her own light at the same time that everybody else does. He moved back to Spain in 2008, where he lived in a monastery in the Basque Mountains for a couple of years, and he has now returned to Sweden, from where he joins this conversation. Yoda says, "Much to learn, you still have, my old Padawan. This is just the beginning. Let's see where we end in this conversation and what I will learn from you." Master Eugenio, welcome to the show. I'm very much looking forward to diving deep together with you.
You are too nice to me, Holger. You always appear in my life in moments of change and transformation, no? So let's see where I end after this conversation.
So what's your current state of mind, Eugenio?
I am lost in transition. That's what I can say. I am in between moving back to Sweden and leaving Spain. And I have left Spain, but I haven't really, my soul and my whole being hasn't arrived yet to Sweden. So I am in between, no? And well, that's the state in which I am just now.
And maybe that's an interesting point of conversation about the topics we want to talk, if we talk about the path of the change practitioner.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You could say that the people are the best. The people I perceive the best change practitioners are people that live in the in-betweens. Their life is a chain of transitions, not a change of states with occasional transitions. But of course, everybody projects their own life into their profession. So that's what I am also doing. No?
In the book you contributed to our reading list, which we will discuss more in detail later, the author Henry Nouwen says, "Only when you are able to set your own boundaries, you will be able to acknowledge, respect, and even be grateful for the boundaries of others." That speaks to me a lot because I haven't always done a good job in setting my own boundaries and respecting those of others. How does that quote speak to you? I mean, personally, how good have you been at respecting your own and others' boundaries?
Well, I have also been very bad at that, no? At times, no? So I have been shuttling between being boundaryless and being too rigid with my boundaries, no? Well, it has been a while since I thought about it, but maybe that's one of the reasons why one of my most important tasks when I'm supporting my clients is to help them see and acknowledge their own boundaries. No? And that's the concept I call boundary conditions. How can I help them to define what doesn't need to be changed or they don't want to change? No? So probably that's one of the reasons, no? My own issues with finding the right place to set my boundaries, no? I think that the boundaries that are explicit, they are possible to work with. The boundaries that are not explicit are very difficult to work with because you only learn where they are when you get hurt, when you trespass them. And most systems, both organizations or communities, they tend to punish the people that touch boundaries that have never been explicit. This has big consequences for my way of working, because in the end, nearly 75% of my time is helping my clients to define what will not change, the continuity, and helping them to let go of the control of the rest. My way of managing my own boundaries in reality is one of the cornerstones in my work. So because the thing is that the principle is that if you know enough of what doesn't need to be changed or you don't want to be changed and you let go of control of the rest, then change happens by itself.
Okay, and maybe this is linked to one of the topics we wanted to talk about, which is the concept of fuzzy and meshed systems. Now, Eugenio, I looked it up at Google, and you are the only one who talks about fuzzy and meshed systems. I find definitions about fuzzy, and I find definitions about enmeshed. Enmeshed obviously seems to come from Salvador Minuchin, who introduced the concept of enmeshed families, in which individual members have little or no autonomy. And fuzzy, of course, fuzzy we have in IT, cloud computing, comes a little bit from, I think, quantum physics. But what is a fuzzy and meshed system?
Okay, first I want to say that the concept of enmeshed is completely the contrary, nearly, from the one of Minuchin. In a fuzzy and meshed system, as I understand them, and as I use the concept, people are highly autonomous, and I will explain that. I mean fuzzy and meshed because it's a system where there's no easily discernible no formal internal structure, no formal boundaries that define what's inside and what's outside, and there's no instance that has the formal authority to take responsibility for the whole. And this is a difference still, for example, with a bounded system where there is a formal internal structure, there are formal boundaries, you can know what's inside and what's outside, and there's some instant that is identified as formally responsible for the whole, like, for example, a company. Okay,
all right.
So
can we make that more practical? Give me an example of a fuzzy system.
For example, a fuzzy system, I am working with a county in Catalonia that some of the players or of the stakeholders, like, for example, the municipality and some other players in civil society, are trying to influence the whole county so that the policies for economical development, they have always thought about economical development in terms of economy, with key performance indicators that were mostly numbers. No, Now they want to influence the whole county, all the players, civil society, public sector, private companies, to think holistically, to think that the economic development is so intertwined with the social and environmental development that they can't only use economic parameters to define it. So the thing is, from the point of our conversation today, is how can you promote such a change when you are a player that don't have formal authority over nobody else?
How can you work in such a system?
Well, there are many people that know how to do that. They are doing it every day. How to promote change when they don't have real formal power. They have maybe real power, but not formal power. No, you need to know how to influence. You need to know how to influence without manipulating, being transparent, being generous, understanding that you have to promote your own agenda while you at the same time acknowledge that all the other players have their own agenda and is as legitimate as your own.
Sounds to me as a counter concept to politics. Obviously, politics and politicians intervene in fuzzy systems, in fuzzy and meshed systems, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yes, but they intervene in fuzzy and mesh system, but they are trying all the time to make them into bounded and structured, as if they had the power over the whole, and they don't. They are frustrated because they cannot own the whole system. So if you want to intervene with high impact and low pain in a fuzzy and mesh system, you have to accept that your agenda is as legitimate as anybody else. And you are transparent, and you are generous, and you are dialogical, and you know that what you do will not have the impact you expect, but you need to do it anyhow.
Eugenio, that sounds quite intriguing. And of course, the people have grown up in a political system which is contrary to what you just said. So what's your role then as a change facilitator to help such a system, and in particular the people, the players within, to change?
Well, I train them in promoting change from a position of presence and influence, but not of power over the whole or over any other change agent. And some players don't want to do that. They just, the moment I come into the room, they leave. But others do. So I can only preach with my example, preach with my presence, with my way of speaking, helping them understand the consequences of that it has had on them, that other players have tried to manipulate them or to control them. This is a generational work. It's not a work only for one project, one change process. Well, it's the future of humanity, I believe, no? To acknowledge that everything is enmeshed and fuzzy. We are all intertwined, we are all connected. Change doesn't happen in the future, but happens in the now. All these principles that govern the fuzzy and meshed systems.
I'm starting to understand what you're saying, Eugenio, and I'm asking myself, what happens if part of the system leaves and you continue to work with the rest of the system? Are you not taking sides then, and doesn't the entire process get unbalanced?
Yes, but the systems are always unbalanced. I can say that I am not neutral to the how. I am neutral to the content, to most of the content. No, if the content of the change, the what of the change, is within some ethical boundaries, then I am neutral to whatever happens, what they want to promote. No, but I am never neutral to the how. I have my own agenda always. No, I try to promote people's autonomy within the interdependence, but not within a structure or with a power structure. No, and that's non-negotiable for me. No, so it doesn't matter if it's a company or if it's a county, a territory. I have always my own agenda, and that's what people buy from me. That I have a how that is very, very committed to a specific way of thinking about how organizations and how people work, but completely neutral to the content of the change.
So you mentioned regions as examples for fuzzy and meshed systems. Do you have other examples?
Yes, I am also working with an association of lawyers and judges that want to promote what they call collaborative justice.
Okay.
The fuzzy and meshed system where they work is the legal system in Spain, because there are many players and many instances and many associations and the judges and the government and so on. And nobody has real power, formal power over each other. No? One of the things they want to promote is conscious contracts based on trust, not on confrontation and fear. I am trying to help them to become a light within that system so that they more attract the interest of other players more than trying to push the system in a certain direction, utilizing lobbying and things like that. Helping them to shine with an own light so that they become attractive and to create a critical mass of people, of players within this legal system that are interested in what they have to offer.
How do you do that practically? What's your work with them?
Just now, at this point, is just teaching them not to use the tools of what they want to change in order to have influence. So to be true to what they want to promote, so that they become conscious and collaborative in their way of promoting change. It wouldn't work if they want to promote collaborative justice and they are manipulative in their way of promoting change.
So give me another example.
Yeah, well, it's a huge retail company worldwide that they have decided that they want to work with their value chain, both providers and the retailers. They want to work with them in a not so authoritarian way as usual, not just but the power that their size gives them, but trying to promote a collaborative value chain. So it's inviting both providers, clients, and retailers, inviting them to collaborative meetings to work on specific challenges, like, for example, how do we create a sustainable value chain? In order to do that, the company needs to acknowledge that its boundaries are porous, are fuzzy towards the rest of the players of the value chain. So they have to acknowledge that they are interdependent.
Now, we have a lot of other colleagues out there who work with complex systems with multiple stakeholders. Of course, it has been around for a very long time. What's the specific attraction of taking your approach to look at those systems as fuzzy and meshed systems? So why should our colleagues adapt such an approach?
If you want to promote change with more impact and less pain for yourself and for the players within the system and the people that will be affected and so on, I think that this is the approach. I think that many other approaches, as legitimate as they are, they create more pain than is necessary. And for me, that's one of my missions, my mission in life, no? To teach how to promote change with more impact and less pain.
And is this the real task of change facilitators, to reduce pain?
Well, I wonder, is there any other deeper motivation for anybody that works on change than try to mitigate pain and create organizations that don't create more pain? Is there any other meaning with our work?
The opposite would be to help to increase joy.
Yes. That there are colleagues that look more into that. No, the risk of going into that is to fall into the trap that Barbara Ehrenreich wrote about smile or die. Is the tyranny of happiness. That's a big risk. So I think that it's good. We work to create organizations where joy is possible, but we need to keep an eye so that we don't contribute even more to create a brave new world. Well, it's a future where there's no pain, no? And the thing is that the whole of our society is in a movement towards the tyranny of happiness. To go back to your questions, I think that it's important to create organizations that support the ability of people to feel joy, to self-organize, to self-regulate, etc., etc. Yeah? At the same time, I am worried that in the current state of our culture, we do more of the same that our culture is doing. This is the kind of society we live in just now. Our colleagues that work mostly on joy, I am not saying that they are doing a bad job. I think that they need to be very, very, very aware that they are riding a wave, and they are riding a cultural wave that leads to catastrophe. So they should speak also about pain at the same time.
Yeah, that brings me to a point I wanted to talk with you about of all the suggestions that you gave us over time, I will never forget, and I keep quoting you with this again and again because it sounds like a dream and a little bit contrary to what you just said. You said love is the ultimate change model. What's the thing about love? And maybe before you talk about love, tell me how you did arrive at the idea of love being a change model. I mean, when love is the ultimate change model, which are the other premature stages of change?
Oh, it's such a complex question, and at the same time so simple. If I begin with myself and my own life, I have done during many years lots of trainings and psychotherapy and coaching, me as a client, and lots of self-improvement and self-healing activities. All of them have helped me to understand myself very much, very, very much. But none of them has helped me to heal the deep wounds I had carried with me, not only from childhood, but also from adulthood. The only situation where I began to heal is when I was so much in pain because of very deep personal and professional crisis. When somebody told me, you can come home to my home, and they opened their home, they gave me the best room in their home, and I lived there during 3 years. And it's more or less when you and I met the first time. It was in a monastery where they never tried to do anything else with me apart from loving me, accepting me in my pain, in my wounds, and so on. And there I said, there must be something these people do that is right that I'm not doing in my life, or not in my personal life and not in my professional life. If I go back to my profession, what I see is that transformation happens only the moment that in a specific setting, a meeting, or on a phase of a process, people look into each other's eyes and they just begin to shine because they recognize each other's humanity in its greatness and in its miseries. Well, I saw it just for a couple of months, 3 months ago, with the management team of a multinational international cooperative that is trying to establish itself in China. So, and the strategy for internationalization in China, they just got stuck all the time in the same place, speaking about the strategy, speaking about the different risks, the SWOT, whatever, and so on. And then I said, let's stop the bullshit. Let's stop this. And let's speak about your personal fears regarding internationalization, regarding going to China. The resistance was great. They began to attack me. And I said, okay, but if you don't want to go there, I will respect it. But my hypothesis is that if you don't begin to speak about your fears, you will never take the next step regarding the strategy. It will be just blah, 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 blah. So it took up a couple of hours. And in the end, they weren't crying. They were just looking at each other, all these men, and only one woman, with their ties and their high status and so on. And they began to see we're afraid of the same thing. And what we are saying here is that we will have problems of sending people to China because people want to stay at home. And that's what we are afraid of. So that's why we don't go forward. And that's what I mean is the first step in love. When you look at each other and you see the other person's humanity and you recognize it in yourself. The capacity to look into each other's eyes and recognize the greatness and the misery of their common humanity has strategic consequences for the business.
We talked about pain before, and we talked about joy. So is love the bridge between the two?
Yeah, exactly. That's very good said. I saw once the intervention of Mother Teresa of Calcutta in one of these big Davos or something. And she just came out, she was very old, she came out with two nuns beside her, one on each side, and she just asked all the audience to say, I have only one question for you. Do you love your employees? Thank you. And she left. No? I think that that's one of the most powerful interventions I have ever seen. Thing is that most of us, like me, we don't know what we are speaking about when we speak about love. We just believe that love is a feeling, an emotion. Love in the way that I begin to understand it, the love that has strategic impact is not about feeling anything. It's about taking a decision to put the welfare of others before the welfare of the business. Because what's the point? What's the point of having a business if you are just killing the planet or killing people's happiness? So what's the point? I don't understand that. No?
We had this nice little discussion earlier this week on an article I wrote on LinkedIn about how our discipline might change in the years to come. And you raised the question, what do you as a change agent want to give to the world? And that's a question that has been puzzling me for many years. So what is it that you want to give to the world, and do you have an impact?
My mission with my profession and with my life is to help people, support people to have more impact with less pain for others and for themselves. And that's why I work mostly with organizations, because the organizations nowadays is the greatest source of pain.
Do you have hope?
Yes, I am not optimist, but I'm very hopeful. Yeah, it's a completely different thing. No, it's a completely different thing. I am not optimist. I think that there are lots of trends that show that we are going towards a catastrophe, and the same thing, I have hope, because hope is the last thing anybody can lose.
Let's talk about one thread you are following for some years. You created the GATE, the Guild of Agents for Intentional Transformation, a network of people committed to support each other with the purpose of increasing the impact of their interventions, while at the same time diminishing the pain. Here we have the pain again, they cause, and avoiding to put themselves in harm's way. So how's the forming of this network coming along? I remember that 3 years ago you were close to give up.
I am always close to give up, but because I see at the moment just now is that I have invested lots of time and money in seeding this in several countries, and the only place where it has become more or less stable is in Spain. There are 3 groups in Spain that meet more or less regularly, but 3 months ago, I decided to let go of control completely and jump out of the network. And it's a test. Maybe it dies. I don't know.
What happens in the network meetings?
We do casework. It's not about teaching each other. It's about presenting the cases or the processes or the challenges that each one has in their work, and the rest of the people support that person to find new ways of intervening or of managing the process or managing himself or herself or so on. No, I was very much inspired by Alcoholics Anonymous. No, but the task for this GATE network is to support each other to have more impact with less pain.
In the next section, I would ask you to give me a number between 1 and 70, and this number corresponds with a list of 70 questions, which I have in front of me, and I will ask you this question. So between 1 and 70.
23.
Okay, that's a nice question. What is special about the place you grew up? Actually, where did you grow up, and what is special about that place?
I grew up in Madrid, but it's not so much the place, but the context, no? And it's a dictatorship. Franco dictatorship, and that's the special thing about it. No, I remember that I started every day in school during the first years doing the Nazi salute and singing some fascist songs in school. No? So that's where I came from, and that's one of the reasons that why I have this very deep and how would say anti-authoritarian, or I would say more or less anarchic. Very structured, but very committed to individual freedom and individual self-regulation. That's what I came to think about.
Let's come to your book suggestion. It's quite spiritual. You suggested Henry Nouwen's book, which is The Inner Voice of Love, A Journey Through Anguish to Freedom. So it repeats the same topics we have been talking about. Henry Nouwen was a Dutch priest and psychologist. He describes a kind of hero's journey, a concept which is frequently mentioned in the Days of Change podcast. So what he says, for example, let me just quote him. It seems that you keep crossing and recrossing the border. For a while, you experience a real joy in the new country, but then you feel afraid and start longing again for all you left behind. So you go back to the old country.
Yeah.
Tell us how this book impacted you.
Well, it helps me to see what life in the in-between is. And it puts word to somebody much wiser than me that has gone this path before. No, this book is his diary and his reflections while he was in this in-between land. On the one hand, I want to go to a place of love, to a place of responsibility, to a place where I can give because I don't have anything more to lose. Yeah? And on the other hand, I want to go back to the place where I am loved. I am the recipient of love. When I know that I need to go to a place where I am the person that is loving. No? Those are the two lands he's writing about. No? And as I see, I am there. I am in that in between myself. So his book is a great comfort.
Let's talk about music. Excellent music choice. You named Arvo Pärt, the Estonian composer who I love, although I didn't know the sweet song Spiegel im Spiegel. It's really beautiful. Then was The End from the Doors, which always reminds me of the movie Apocalypse Now, which is one of my all-time favorites. And I still haven't found what I'm looking for from you two, sung together with a gospel choir. All three very, very beautiful. We have a Spotify playlist, and our listeners can find the link to this playlist on our website, which is changedays.com/podcast. Talk about The End from the Doors.
Well, for me, I associate also with the film of Apocalypse Now, and it's about what we were speaking before. This is the end. This is a catastrophe. We see that everything is going to hell, and at the same time, there's hope. So it's and that's what the film is about. This is hell, and at the same time, there's hope.
Last point, Eugenio, you are a frequent guest of the Change Days as a participant, but even more as a resource person. How would you describe the experience of the Change Days?
I don't think that it's possible to separate the Berlin Change Days from you, Holger. No? And I think that you have created something that is a structure where we can come and do and follow our passion. I love it. It's a place of connection. It's a place of learning. It's a place of love, in a way. You have succeeded in doing something that I would never succeed in. No, I suppose that you need to be less opinionated than I am to do something like this. No, to be somebody that holds a space, that is able to hold a space where many people have many different sensibilities and many different things. No, instead of being someone that is pushing like me. What I see is that you in the Berlin Change Days, at least, you hold a space where all differences can happen, no? But it doesn't mean that, it doesn't seem that you have an agenda to influence people in a specific direction when we are there.
Dear Eugenio, it has been intellectually and spiritually enlightening talking to you. Thanks so much for having been here, my guest. Thank you. It's always good to talk to you.
Same to you. Thank you, Holger, for your generosity.